Some things in life go better together, like milk and cookies, matching socks, and GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams. Integrating the two is easy and means no more switching back and forth between apps to make calls, take meetings, get voicemail, and more. GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams. It's the peanut butter and jelly of the digital communications world.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Our topic is Bridging the Telephony Gap of Microsoft Teams. My name is Erica Mackey, and I'm here with you from the team at GoTo. Just a couple of quick items before we get started. Today's presentation is being recorded, and we will share the slides and resources with you in the follow-up email a little later today. We have questions in the GoToWebinar questions panel. Please don't hold your questions, type them in. Our speakers will be taking questions throughout, and we have plenty of time towards the end for questions as well. So with that, I'm excited to introduce our speakers today. We have Joseph Walsh, our Senior Manager, Global Product Marketing over there in our Ireland offices or your remote offices, as well as Alexis Garrow from our Solutions Consultant team for Unified Comms and Collaboration here at LogMein. So with that, thanks for joining, Joe and Alexis. Take it away.
Good to be here, Erica. Thank you very much. Great to see everybody in the audience today, and keen to get discussing our latest topic, which is GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams. So I'm just going to get my slides up here to share with you guys. One moment. Eric, if you could mind passing me just the presenter slide again.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, just to give a little bit about myself, a bit of background to everybody. My name is Joe Walsh. I've been with LogMein for just about 2 years now. I've been working in telecommunications for the best part of 15 years, maybe even a little bit more. I've worked with brands like Vodafone and British Telecom. I've worked with our incumbent telecoms provider in Ireland, Eircom. I've been with LogMein, I said, now for about 2 years, and very much enjoying the challenge of bringing GoToConnect to the market and helping all the Microsoft Teams users out there get the best of use of it as well. Alexis, you want to give yourselves a brief introduction to everybody?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Alexis Garrow, Solutions Consultant here out of formerly our Raleigh office. And a little bit about myself, I was formerly a senior support engineer for Skype for Business Online and Microsoft Teams for several years, and have really, through my frontline experience, have seen the pain that IT administrators and UCC admins experience when working with phone systems, Microsoft or otherwise. And also through my experience here at LogMein, have seen the value of combining GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams together to provide a more consolidated and seamless unified communications experience for organizations. And that's what we'll be showing here today.
Cheers for that, Alexis. Alexis and I actually started in LogMein at similar times. I think he joined us a month or two after me, and we got together pretty quick because actually Alexis had come from Microsoft, and in my role with British Telecom on my last company, we were channel partners to Microsoft and trying to bring Microsoft Teams to all its great customers. So a topic that we know well, and a topic we're hoping to share a lot of knowledge and insights with the audience today. So thanks very much for joining. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to go through over the next 30, 40 minutes or so, we'll focus a little bit on the changing landscape of how we're working. Okay, it's very hard to get away from the impact of COVID right now and what that is doing to businesses around the world. And for all the people in attendance today, economies are at different stages of emerging from the pandemic. With some people back in the office, I was talking to an Australian audience this morning who are all back in the office and really embracing new ways of working. And in Ireland, the UK, and in the States as well, we're beginning to creep out of the pandemic and offices opening up at different stages depending on where you're at. We'll look at how this new landscape is changing the tools that we're using. We'll look at Microsoft Teams' role in this. They've been a big success story of the last 12 months or so with COVID. We'll look at why, though, a number of Microsoft Teams customers and most UC customers in general, to be honest, are deploying secondary platforms as well. We'll look at an overview of GoToConnect and the Microsoft Teams integration. We'll give you a demonstration of that, and then we'll talk a little bit how we add that value to Microsoft Teams customers and how you can really get the best of both worlds with GoTo and Microsoft Teams. And then, of course, always options to learn more. So we'll get stuck straight into it. One of the things, we've done a lot of research in this space, obviously, from LogMein, we're experts in remote working and hybrid working. It's a space we've been in long before COVID struck, an area we've been helping organizations get set up in multiple working environments over the years. And what we've seen with the impact of COVID, right, is that pre-COVID, we had about 12%, okay, just over 1 in 10 of people primarily working away from the office in the workplace. That's changed drastically because of COVID, completely turned on its head. The vast majority of people not working in the office for the last 12 months or so, find themselves working in makeshift home offices or working at kitchen tables or working wherever they can find space to get work done. And that's going to have a lasting impact on the way we work. And regardless of the economy or the country or the geography, where you look, the feeling's the same. Employees really took a lot of positives, a lot of benefits from remote work and from flexible work. They saved a lot of time. I think the average commute is about 2.5 hours a day, 1 hour, 15 minutes each way, morning and afternoon. Getting that time back has allowed people time to do so much more, spend time with friends, spend time with family, even invest a little bit of time back in work and increase productivity. Employees are generally happier. They do feel like they're more empowered to get more work done within the 8-hour day, and that leaves them feeling more equipped to avoid burnout. They're not under pressure to get into the office on time. They get to avoid sitting in traffic, and even things like harsh weather conditions. Just taking that out of the equation, that people don't have to get out into rain or cold or severe weather in the morning. That's just making them feel all around a little bit better. And it's not just employees that are winning. Okay, businesses are winning too. There's business benefits when you can set up your workforce to work effectively from anywhere. It brings increased productivity, improved motivated staff. You can actually increase your revenue in organization because you're getting more done and you're getting more out the door faster, and you increase IT efficiency. Okay, you can get a better deployment of IT tools when you consolidate vendors and tools and give yourself a seamless experience. And that can increase adoption and increase the tools that everybody's using within an organization. So, big advantages for employees, big advantages for businesses, and an exciting time to see so many organizations beginning to embrace these new ways of working in the coming weeks and months as we emerge out of the pandemic. So that's a quick snapshot of what's happening in the world. I could talk about that for an hour. We won't, right? There's a lot going on in the world that we could focus on. But what we've seen, and particularly in our industry, is there's been a drastic change in the tools that people are using to get work done, right? Things like video conferencing is now ubiquitous in organizations, almost as commonplace as email. I think 87% of people are using video conferencing on a day-to-day basis, right? If we look at the brands that have become household name brands over the last year, GoTo, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google Workspace, Zoom, Cisco WebEx. These are all platforms that were in existence, that were providing a very valued service before the early months of 2020. And as soon as COVID kicked in, there was a massive surge towards these tools. And this has been reflected in the installed user base across the market. Okay, just at the end of 2019, there was about 74 million users of cloud meetings and collaboration tools. That's going to have quadrupled by the end of this year, up to over 272 million paid for licenses of people using these platforms, and the growth's not going to stop there. As organizations begin to map out new ways of working, that market's going to continue to grow exponentially to about over 700 million installed users by the end of 2026. That's about a 10 times growth in the market, primarily driven by the surge of the pandemic and the lasting impact that is having on the workplace. So, huge amount of people using platforms like GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar, huge interest in tools like this, and something that's been a real success story from the last 12 months of the pandemic. Alexis, just turn it to you for a little bit. You're in the front line, you talk to customers more frequently than I do, right? What kind of tools are you encountering with the customers day to day in the market that they're using?
Definitely, and great question. Some of the features that customers are really looking to add to their portfolios now are really enabling those more advanced features of their phone systems that they may currently have, or migrating to phone systems that have those features. For example, call queues. Being able to really receive more inbound call volume and handle that volume more effectively in this time when users are or their employees are working remotely, or their physical sites have been shut down and they need to rely more on inbound call volume. And also reporting, whether that be for training purposes, compliance, or just making sure that your employees are effectively handling calls and what their actual statistics are for employee performance.
Cool. Cheers for that, Alexis. And let's look at some of that things, right? Because people are using these tools regularly, and what's interesting in being in the industry and understanding how the evolution of these tools work in the organizations, what we're seeing at the moment is those primary mainstay features that people are using across the platforms, things like video conferencing. Okay, this has been the glue that has kept the working world together over the last 12 months when meeting in person just physically wasn't an option. We're seeing a lot of the voice features being used. Okay, so people dialing into video conferencing, maybe using PSTN lines, using mobile phones, audio conferencing bridges, and that's to get past maybe areas that have weak broadband connectivity or where quality isn't great. You can bring your voice in over the phone line to give that extra bit of reliability and resilience to the calls. Screen sharing content, we're doing it right now. people are doing this every day. Things like messaging and Microsoft Teams has been, a revelation in this space from an instant messaging standpoint, persistent chat, group chat. People are using this regularly. Asynchronous collaboration and file sharing, that's something that's happening a lot more. We're even seeing that come through at LogMein because of the forced environment. We had a good few people working remote before the pandemic, but with the entire company working remote, we've just seen a shift in habits and ways of working, which has really had a positive impact on our productivity. And of course, recording being used a lot more regularly. It's actually something I've become a bit of a fan of over the last year, is sending pre-watches for meetings instead of pre-reads. Okay, it's a lot easier to just compose a 2-3 minute recording and hit send, and it's easier for people to consume that than a big long lengthy email with bullet points and what you want to get out of a meeting. So pre-watches are definitely the way forward for me, using the useful recording. But these are kind of the main features and functions that you expect to have in these tools, right? And now as these tools become a bit more embedded in the processes of organizations and they get used in different ways, and when people come back to the office, we expect to see different features and different things being used. Okay, so if we look at, the type of things we expect to see to be used in a bit more of a kind of mass use cases, things like note taking and transcriptions. All right, helping the audience get a much better output from the meetings, help them to take smart notes, right? So being able to have a written transcript of the meeting, to be able to send that on, to be able to identify where certain actions were taken, who are they actioned against. It's a personal pet hate of mine. I'm not very good at the admin after a meeting, and tools like this will make it a lot easier for me to get past that. So expect to see a lot more note-taking and transcription capabilities within the platforms. Transferring between modalities, particularly as offices reopen, okay, and people are on the go more, you're on the move more, you'll be jumping from desktop clients to mobile clients, taking on a mobile device or a laptop device, or even like, coming into the office on a mobile device and then moving into an in-room meeting experience where you then transfer over to in-room video conferencing and continue your participation in the meeting that way as well. So you'll see a lot more people being a bit more flexible with how they attend meetings and get the most out of their time. Hand raising is another thing for a bit of meeting etiquette, and an interesting topic of conversation and some content ideas for us is to talk about all the different nuances and the different things we've seen from people using video conferencing over the last year, but certainly creating a more formal way of raising questions and raising asks of people within a meeting is to create more formal hand raising capabilities within the platforms as well, which gives the meeting chair a bit more capability and a bit more insight into who wants to ask questions. Then we're going to get to more kind of cognitive functions where it's bringing out more insights into people's behavior and attentiveness in meetings, right? What that does for the chairperson and how they can stimulate people in terms of participating. So we'll expect to see a lot more of that come into platforms, and also calling capability. And something we'll talk a lot more in detail today is bringing that phone system into these tools, okay? To give employees one interface, one platform for having meetings, for sending messages, for making phone calls, for receiving phone calls, everything through one place that's available wherever they are. Okay, that expect to see a lot more of that ramp up over the course of the coming months and years as people get the most out of their investment in their cloud meetings and collaboration tools. So Alexis, before we move on to that, is there any other features or any other things you think customers should be keeping an eye out for over the next year?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was said very well there that in some of the features, such as what we see here on screen, features that add a lot of interactivity, whether that be for meetings, such as hand raising, and also breakout rooms, or being able to take notes, and also using AI as we have here to add more depth and other feature sets that would otherwise be unavailable for meetings and unified communications. But also, as we were perhaps mentioning earlier, adding those administrative level features such as reporting, whether that be for legal compliance reasons or training. But also the other thing that perhaps should be remembered in this time of post-COVID and where we are now working from anywhere is being able to, again, gather logs and statistics on how our unified communication system is performing, and making sure that our new work from anywhere strategy is working effectively for your company. Being able to leverage those administrative level features of a true enterprise level communication system. And one thing that perhaps we did not mention earlier is doing all of this securely. Because no matter what features that we may have, whether that be hand raising or breakout rooms, the feature is only as good as secure as that feature is. And that's one thing that we've also concentrated here very strongly at LogMein throughout all of our solutions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alexis. And security actually is a big one, right? I think I was reading research recently that talked about how security and the attack surface for cyber criminals has actually increased about 6 to 8 times over the last 12 months. And that's because people are using their own devices, they're bringing their own applications, they're accessing corporate systems and customer data through those personal devices, through home Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, And that just created a bit of a minefield for IT teams and a much bigger playing surface for them to try and defend themselves against cyber criminals. So yes, security definitely a big thing, and start seeing a lot more emphasis on those elements of these platforms over the coming years as well. Okay, so one of the main reasons we're here today is to talk about Microsoft Teams, right? And most of the people in the audience, if not everybody in the audience, is a Microsoft Teams customer at the moment, okay? So the reason why we're talking about Microsoft Teams today is Microsoft Teams has been a fantastic success story over the last 12 years. The service that Microsoft has rolled out to its customers has been taken up at a rapid pace. It's now 26% market share of the cloud meetings and collaborations market. So a huge chunk of all these users using Microsoft Teams as a platform. And what we wanted to do was look and drill into the behavior a bit more of Microsoft Teams users. And that's something we've been doing with various research houses and various primary research work that we've done. And one thing we've noticed across this is that actually, a large amount of Microsoft users, and in fact, a large amount of most organizations are deploying more than one unified communications platform or one cloud meetings and collaboration platform, right? And the reason for that is a couple of reasons, right? Depending on the size of the organization, they could be in a migration journey where they're beginning to move and consolidate into one platform, and at this moment in time, they have multiple ones. It could be that organizations have a preference for specific vendors around specific use cases, and that's quite true in our case, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But what this is seen is that the average actually amount of deployments is 2.6. Okay, so if you're using Microsoft, if you're using Cisco, and if you're using GoTo, right, you're not that different to most people in the market. Okay, most people in the markets are using multiple solutions at the moment, even with about a quarter of the market, just under the quarter market, actually using over 4 solutions. We were actually like that. We were using Cisco for telephony. We were using Slack for messaging and meetings. We were using GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar for all. Sorry, Slack for messages and GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar for all our meetings capability, right? And we're actually now consolidating that. GoToConnect is our telephone system. We're moving our messaging from Slack to Microsoft Teams. So we'll have GoTo for all our communications from a meeting standpoint and a voice standpoint, and we'll use Microsoft Teams from a messaging standpoint. So we're consolidating that process as well to bring down the amount of vendors that we've been using. And we're seeing a lot of that with our customers as well. So Alexis, is that something, we see it at LogMein, we're seeing it in the research. Are you seeing that in the field with your customers when you're talking to them?
Yes, customers have multiple reasons for having multiple solutions, as we were saying here, whether that be for contract reasons, maybe they're still stuck on contract with one solution, whether it be for paying the lease for that equipment or for support and maintenance contracts, as well as feature sets. Some regions have better solutions. For example, some countries will have a better solution that comes in at a better price point for that one particular country or region. But they will have the same will be true for another region, such as GoToConnect would be a suitable solution for a particular country or region, where maybe one other region would have one provider that has simply a lower price because of that particular situation in that country. Being able to combine multiple solutions in one overall telephony architecture for a company, that's very common, again, for regional or legal reasons, or also features. Maybe one solution in one country has certain features that they need, but a satellite office simply does not need advanced call queue or contact center features, for example, and they can go with a lower cost solution.
Okay, cheers for that, Alexis. And let's kind of build a little bit on that a bit more, looking at how Microsoft Teams and GoTo work kind of well together. I think the primary use case for Microsoft Teams at the moment is very much for internal meetings, things like team meetings, one-to-ones, informal catch-ups, or project meetings with an organization, instant messaging completely, and things like town halls, right, when your CEO or so many organizations addressing a large amount of people within the company. That's been the primary use case that we see for Microsoft Teams. And I think when we look at GoTo and how GoTo's normally been positioned as a brand, right, we're more about those external communications, okay? So sales teams meeting with prospects and customers, using marketing teams using our webinars and events platforms, looking for things like integrations with CRM systems, looking for things like, registration process and sourcing where leads have come from, because really the main goal is about driving leads out of webinars and events, and what most of our customers use these tools for. Then you have things like training as well, where you're looking for the ability to take tests and store content, give more kind of interactivity during events, during sessions as well. And then also things like phone systems. Okay, phone systems is something that a lot of people are using different providers for. The vast majority of Microsoft Teams are using different providers for phone systems. And then contact centers come into it as well. Okay, again, so those more complex interactions that involve customers, that involve talking outside your organization, that's something that we've been really strong in and are really strong in, and Microsoft Teams are really strong in an internal standpoint. So normally when you bring our two platforms together, you get a really good mix of strengths, and we complement each other really well. And that's why we see a lot of customers actually reaching out for integrations between Microsoft Teams and GoTo, because we just work in those more specific use cases where there's maybe Microsoft Teams is a bit limited in some of those features and capabilities that they have. So let's continue to focus on the reason that we're here for today, is those phone calls, those calling capabilities, right, within Microsoft Teams, because we do see the vast deployment of Microsoft Teams focusing on meetings, focusing on messaging, but not focusing on phone calls. Okay, in fact, 70% of all Microsoft Teams customers that plan to deploy calling capability into their phones do target on using an alternative vendor to meet their needs. And there's a few reasons for that. Okay, there's a few reasons we need to look at. One of these things is around reliability. Okay, and when we look at reliability of a platform, particularly a platform like GoToConnect, right? When you come traditionally from the voice standpoint, the phone system standpoint, reliability is like, it is everything. Your phone system lives and breathes off its uptime. It has to be always available. If a phone system is down, 99 times out of 100, customers can't reach an organization, and that's a bad place for any organization to be. And what we've seen with Microsoft, their SLA would be one of the weaker SLAs on the market from a telephony standpoint, and their uptime and their history with uptime wouldn't be as strong as some of the traditional telephony houses. So a few organizations are a little bit concerned about reliability issues, and one of the reasons why they defer a little bit from the platform. The second is simple, it's features. Okay, Microsoft's phone system is a good phone system, but a little bit immature in its development. Okay, still missing some additional capabilities that a lot of organizations need, like virtual fax for other markets. Also, extra capability around things like hold music, being able to play your own hold music to customers in your own audio library, your own messages that you want to put out there. So additional things that Microsoft, are still lacking a little bit in their product. Administration tools is a huge reason why people choose GoToConnect, because we have a really strong set of tools, and again, just offering users a better experience in that space. Customer support is another thing, and that is something that again is really top of mind for people when the element of communications is as critical as their phone system, because when it's down, they need immediate response, they need fast response, and if you're going to have a bit of downtime, you want to make sure your customer support is up to scratch. So again, just a little bit of concern, sometimes a little bit of reluctance from Microsoft customers to go down the route from a telephony standpoint because of areas like customer support. And then from a costs perspective as well, okay, unlike the Microsoft Teams elements with messaging and meetings, you can get those included at no extra cost, regardless of the license that you have at Microsoft. However, if you're looking for the phone system, if you're not on the very top tier license, you do need to pay additional revenues for those licenses. You do need to pay additional revenues for particular calling plans as well, specifically when include international minutes. Okay, so those costs and add-ons can stack up, and sometimes it's just more economical to use a different vendor and integrate with Microsoft Teams. You get a reduced total cost of ownership. So they're kind of the 5 main reasons we see Microsoft customers just a little bit reluctant to go down the road with Microsoft's telephone system, and areas where we think we can help. Out of those 5, Alexis, for you, when you're talking to customers, which would be the one that stands out the most?
Yeah, definitely features, the feature sets, and the compatibility that Microsoft, or the lack of compatibility rather, that Microsoft may have with the features that they need in a telephony system moving forward. A prime example of this is call recording. Most organizations need some level of call recording, again, whether that be for compliance or training purposes to review those recordings. And without that feature, they simply are not able to move to a solution that does not have that capability. This follows true for reporting, analytics, and for compliance reasons, as well as, for example, e-faxing or contact center capabilities. Features are the primary reason why customers are simply not able to move to the Microsoft phone system at this time, as well as you were saying earlier, with reliability, that we do want to make sure that wherever we are receiving our inbound calls, that has the highest uptime and also has failover or continuity solutions to make sure that we're not missing any important sales or support calls, and making sure that we're taking care of our customers. But one other thing that I'd like to add, and going back to our earlier slide that we were discussing, and why customers may have multiple solutions for telephony, that can also vary in a few ways. For example, if we have satellite offices and need compatibility for SIP hardware, or maybe setting up a SIP trunk to connect the satellite office to another cloud PBX provider, maybe because that country has certain political restrictions, and being able to connect that to our GoToConnect PBX or another solution to make one unified telephony system for a global enterprise level organization, this is another reason why some organizations would choose to have multiple solutions, and where GoToConnect, as we'll show here, can further consolidate that solution down to just one vendor, that being Teams.
Okay, so some good points there, Alexis, from a feature standpoint, and thanks for adding a bit more technical insight into that as well, because I was pushing the boundaries of my limitation with my few bits and features around the features. So thanks for that. I think, you know, from an organizational standpoint, there are those kind of challenges, right, that they're struggling to overcome. And that has a direct impact on end users, okay? Because if you don't have that calling capability put into Microsoft Teams as an integration, you then have a bit of a disjointed experience for employees, because they're jumping from one application for their meetings and messaging to another application for the phone calls. And they may have restrictions in terms of access to those applications as well. Like, we've spoken to a number of customers that maybe didn't have access to their phone systems while they're away from the office because they were reliant on a physical phone that was on their desk in the office, okay? So, you know, if they are reliant on that physical phone and they don't have access to phones when they're working remote, that just makes them a little bit harder to reach, right? And a little bit harder to reach for customers, because they got to get them on a mobile phone or a cell device, or they need to get them on an instant message, need to get them on a meetings platform, okay? And you know, if your customer's trying to reach you, particularly if you're an account manager, or if you're a customer success manager and your customer wants to reach you, they want to be able to ring you on the numbers that you have and just get you first time. And again, you know, from an employee standpoint as well, they need to divert to more expensive cell phones to make the calls, and that may or may not be part of their package with their employer. If the cell phone isn't included, is that a cost they need to bear themselves? Does that then reduce their ability to make outbound calls if they're not in the office? So these are the things you need to think about when you're using multiple solutions to get your job done day to day. And if you can streamline those and get them to work together in a way that gives that end user a really unified experience, you know, I think you put them in a much stronger position to be productive and get their work done wherever they find themselves. And for most organizations, you know, they're looking at hybrid deployments and maybe looking at more permanent remote roles. That could be from anywhere, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in the office. So they're the kind of challenges that, as an organization, we've been trying to address for our customers, okay? Our customers that are using Microsoft Teams but are looking for a telephony solution to integrate with that to get past some of those challenges. And that's why we've created our GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams integrations, okay? And it's allowing us to overcome those challenges to give a better, improved service to those customers that want to consume both Microsoft and GoTo products. For those of you in the audience that maybe are not familiar with GoToConnect, let me just give you a quick overview of it, okay? GoToConnect is our cloud phone system that comes with extended features that can enable meetings and messaging and integrations from one central tool, okay? Now, how you consume this platform can be flexible and bespoke, designed for your requirements, okay? So for example, if you are using Microsoft Teams for meetings and messaging and you don't want another meetings and messaging platform, you can take all the good components of the phone of GoToConnect, integrate it with Microsoft Teams, and then use all that Microsoft Teams interface for everything. Some of our customers, which actually surprises us, the amount of customers that are looking for this, is a secondary video conferencing tool or a secondary meetings tool to have as a backup in case that they need it. So anything happens with Microsoft Teams. They can also get both power. So you can get the power of Microsoft Teams for messages and meetings, and you can get GoToConnect in there with the messages and meetings as well, just to give it a secondary video conferencing tool. And also for those specific niche use cases that I touched on earlier on, particularly with sales environments and prospects and customers looking for a few extra features and capabilities that we have on the GoTo side that are maybe more suited to that environment. So there's a few different ways you can choose to consume this and make sure it really fits the use cases that you have in your organization. But it's that cloud telephony solution that also comes with, you know, things like presence and fax and all those extra elements you need from a communications platform. It can also serve as an audio conferencing bridge, a video conferencing bridge, and all that screen sharing capability that I just alluded to as well. And of course, it comes with a lot of off-the-shelf integrations to any CRM platforms or big platforms and technologies that you expect to come with a cloud-based phone system these days. So that's a quick overview of GoToConnect. You, of course, there's loads of opportunities to learn more if you'd like to do that, and we'll give you that a chance towards the end of the call. And also what's key to note is that with GoToConnect, that includes all your minutes, all your calls, your domestic calls, calls for international countries, okay, all included on a price per user per month basis, and it's going to give you more than enough minutes. So with that one price, you'll have all the call costs, all the call capability that you need to make all the costs that you need to make. Alexis, before we move on, is there anything you want to pick out about GoToConnect that you see one of the biggest reasons why customers choose it?
Sure. From my frontline experience, the reason I see customers choosing GoToConnect is really a unique balance and combination of being able to offer international and domestic calling, as you were just saying, as well as our feature set, everything that we see here on screen, contact center capability or call queue capabilities, all of our e-faxing. All of our 80+ features of GoToConnect are available at a very low cost from our different GoToConnect tier options. but as well including project management and setup management, support during onboarding, as well as full ongoing break-fix support throughout the life of your contract. The unique combination of all of those services at one low price is really what we see customers coming to GoToConnect because, as well as we'll see here shortly, our integration with Teams. And again, being able to provide all of those great value adds while still keeping your experience centered around Teams.
Great, Alexis, thanks for that comprehensive. So then let's focus on the Microsoft Teams integrations, Alexis, and how Microsoft customers can get that enhanced value, okay? I think first and foremost, one of the big benefits of it, when you bring Microsoft Teams together from a messaging chat and a sharing standpoint with the voice element of GoToConnect, right? It's that end users get that full Microsoft Teams experience. As far as your end user is concerned, GoToConnect doesn't exist. They are making all their calls. They are doing everything through Microsoft Teams. And that's the real advantage for those end users, okay? They get that one complete communication solution for calls, meetings, and messages, and it's available everywhere through the Microsoft Teams applications, whether that's on the desktop, the laptop, their mobile device, in the office, away from the office, wherever they are, they can make and receive calls through the Microsoft Teams app using their office numbers, and it's available 24/7. Those users. So real huge advantages to the end user, a real simplified, streamlined comms experience. When we then look at the IT teams and the IT administrators, right, the people managing the back end, of course, they're going to be 100% aware that GoToConnect is there because this is the engine behind their calling capability within Microsoft Teams, right? So some of the big advantages that they can see is a real no-lift integration, okay? One of the big strings in our bow at GoToConnect is how easy we are to deploy and to integrate with Microsoft Teams. You get improved reliability, okay? So you get that Microsoft Teams end user experience backed up by the 99.99% SLA with GoToConnect, and our uptimes in 2020 were 99.996%. So fantastic reliability, market-leading reliability, powering that telephony through Microsoft Teams. You get all those great functions and features that Alexis Garrow was talking about earlier on, okay? All those additional capabilities that you will have for your phone system to route and direct all those calls to the right users. You get improved administration tools, and you will not see it till you believe it, okay? Our Visual Dial Plan Editor is a market-leading tool that makes the management of telephone systems really simple and really intuitive for IT users, okay? It's something that is probably one of our unique selling points for our platform, and one of the main reasons why a lot of customers go with GoToConnect is our administrative tools. You get improved customer support. I don't like to brag, but I will now. If you go onto g2.com, and if you look at all the reviews around UCaaS providers, #1 for customer support is GoToConnect. Okay, so that's something we really pride ourselves on. Our customer support teams are in-house; they're managed by our own team of experts, and we see it as a real differentiator to our platform as well. And then, of course, improve value for money. If you look at that deployment costs, those total costs of ownerships of your comms platform, when you look at that complete package between GoToConnect and Microsoft Teams, I think you'd be surprised at the price, and I think you'll see a lower cost of ownership for that integration with all that extra value that we add in to that environment as well. So that's enough talking. We're going to pass you over to Alexis. Alexis is going to give you a demonstration of the integration in action, and then we'll come back and just wrap it up for 5 minutes, and then we'll be open to questions from anybody in the audience.
Very perfect. Thank you, Joseph, and I'll just go ahead, share my screen here, and we'll get started. And what I have here on screen is one Teams client or this Teams account that has already been set up with our GoToConnect Teams Connector product, which again is our solution for something called direct routing with Microsoft Teams. And in a nutshell, direct routing is a feature or capability from Microsoft Teams that allows you to use a phone system of your choice rather than a Microsoft's own cloud PBX phone solution to enable calling inside of the Calls app inside of Teams, as we see here on screen. That's simply all we're doing here with GoToConnect Teams Connector, is enabling your Microsoft Teams tenant or accounts for direct routing and direct routing those calls with GoToConnect. What we have here on screen is, if we look at this Teams user and the number that has been assigned to this particular Teams user, this phone number or DID is actually coming from GoToConnect, or more specifically, one of our PBXs. If I were to, for example, give this number a call, and I can go ahead and call this number right here from my phone as I'm doing now, I'll be able to receive this call in Microsoft Teams, but most importantly, only Microsoft Teams, meaning that I'm not signed in to to any of my other GoToConnect endpoints. I'm not signed into, or my hard phone is not connected, and my GoToConnect clients are not signed in, meaning that the only way for me to have picked up this call is by using Microsoft Teams. What this means for you and your users in your organization is that you can deploy Microsoft Teams and only Teams to all of your end users, as Joseph was saying earlier, whether that be desktop, mobile, or web, and allow them to take advantage of our calling services powered by GoToConnect and only training users on how to use Teams. And as you, as the IT admin or UCC admin, can only train, maintain, support, and secure only one client, that for end users, that being Microsoft Teams in this case. From here, we have access to our call handling controls inside of the Teams client, such as being able to transfer, consult and transfer, part calls, set up shared line appearance, as well as we'll see here, being able to take advantage of the best features of both solutions, Microsoft and GoToConnect, on, again, one calling solution. In this example, we see that we're able to take advantage of Teams live captioning, being able to take advantage of this Microsoft feature, even though this is technically a GoToConnect call. We can turn this feature off as well, and we see that because we are using the Microsoft Teams client, we do have full presence integration showing that we are on a call, again, even though this call is technically a GoToConnect call. And we won't be able to show it here, but we will be able to take advantage of Outlook click to call, or being able to click on a phone number anywhere inside of Outlook or an Outlook contact list and initiating that phone call inside of Teams, because again, we are simply using Microsoft Teams as a phone for GoToConnect, and because Outlook and Teams have the native integration of being able to click on a call and initiate that call in Teams, and Teams through direct routing knows how to place that call using GoToConnect, we can still leverage that same ease of use of staying inside of the Microsoft and O365 ecosystem. Again, making it really easy for users to use Teams and O365 for all of their needs, and leveraging GoToConnect as the backend voice provider. And this is also how we empower the users with GoToConnect features, or empower Teams users with GoToConnect PBX features, because we are using Microsoft Teams as essentially, again, a front-end phone for the GoToConnect PBX. All of the calls that you're making from Microsoft Teams, for example, can be recorded. All of those calls will still be reported on by our reporting features, as well as we can enable or answer calls from our call queues in Teams. Just a few quick examples of, again, how we can empower Teams users with GoToConnect features. One last thing I would like to show us as well is that we can leverage Teams voicemail, and thusly Teams voicemail to email powered by Azure, again, as part of the native GoToConnect Teams connector service. Just a few quick examples or a short demonstration of what the end user experience would look like when using our integration with Microsoft Teams, which is GoToConnect Teams connector. One last thing I would like to add that is important to note, because we are leveraging direct routing, in the event of a Microsoft outage or O365 outage, and you cannot access Microsoft Teams, you can always fall back to our GoToConnect clients. Our GoToConnect web client, desktop client, and mobile client, as well as your hard phones, will continue to ring, providing you a business continuity solution in the event of any kind of Microsoft outage, making sure that we'll always be able to receive our inbound call volume, no matter what may be occurring with any of the Microsoft services, whether that be Azure, Teams itself, Exchange, or any other service that could possibly affect your access to Teams.
Alexis, thank you very much. Always good to see that in action. So thank you for that demonstration. If anybody's got any questions, start putting them in. We're just about to wrap up the presentation now, and we can help field some of those questions for you and try and give you some clear answers before we wrap up today. So just in summary, guys, of what we've been talking about, okay, obviously the way the world is working has changed for obvious reasons. That is, trust new tools for people to use into the workplace, and they're being kind of rapidly growing across office spaces and workspaces around the world. They're coming together. Consolidation is something that, it's not just a trend, it's a reality, okay? And in some cases, it's a necessity. People want to reduce the amount of tools that they're using. They want to reduce the amount of vendors that they're working with. They want to consolidate their costs, okay? And your telephone system, if it's not already in the cloud, is one area where you can really kind of ramp up that consolidation. And one thing that Microsoft Teams has done, which is great. It's really forced that public cloud conversation, okay? And because it's only available in the public cloud, it's got people using meetings and messaging from the public cloud, and that's opened up the public cloud as a real possible route for people to consume their comms. And for a lot of customers that we talked to, they're now looking at taking that telephone system, if it's on premise, and putting it into the public cloud as well, and having it up there with the rest of those solutions. So that consolidation that we're seeing is a really important consolidation to make. So if you are thinking about it, do continue along those lines, because it is something a lot of your peers are doing in other organizations. So if we just jump to the next slide, please, Alexis, what we'll see is, and I'll wait for this to come up, what we see because of the pandemic, right, and because of where organizations have found themselves now, 75% of our IT decision makers are really citing agility as one of the biggest reasons for adopting cloud services. And that phone system has been a bit of a laggard, and one that normally has struggled to make it into the cloud. Okay, and it's time for a lot of organizations now to try and address that and get that phone system in the cloud. So 75% of IT decision makers really citing that agility, that ability to pivot at a moment's notice and to keep business operational and to keep everything open and available to their staff. Cloud's a great way of doing that. 61% are focusing on VoIP. Okay, they're moving away from their traditional phone systems at the end of their current commitments, and they are going to focus on VoIP. And that, a lot of the reasons of that is because 80% of CFOs have seen a decrease in revenues or profits or both amid the upheaval of the COVID pandemic in 2020. Okay, so they do need to consolidate their costs. They need to find ways to be a bit more lean and a bit more mean, and there are ways to do that with your communication stack. And that's why 70% of Microsoft Teams users that are planning to put calling capability into Microsoft Teams are looking to alternative vendors to do it, because of the value that they offer, because the additional value in the power and capability of the phone systems that they bring to the market can give them and the capability they can give their end users. So a really kind of, it's a hot topic right now. A lot of organizations are looking at this, and the reasons are pretty clear as to why they're doing it. Let's jump to the next slide, Alexis. So when you add GoToConnect to Microsoft Teams to give you that voice, that enablement, you're enabling that cloud PBX. Okay, you're getting that Teams direct routing. If that's what you want, you can actually use that Microsoft Teams user interface to power everything. The end users, as far as they're concerned, everything's in Microsoft Teams. If you do have contact center requirements as well, we're in a position to help. We've just launched a brand new outbound service. We have an inbound service, and we also resell Nice and Contact as well. So we've contact center options for all types of organizations if they want us to work with those. We've got great user and IT tools. We do make life a hell of a lot easier for the IT administrators that are out there, and we're advancing that administrative tool to give it all one unified admin across the products that we have in LogMein. So again, a real focus on that IT administrator, that telecoms manager, giving them the best experience that they can have as well when it comes to managing their systems. And then if we just jump to the next slide, please, Alexis, one thing where we'd finish up with GoTo, right, and with LogMein in general, and this is something that sometimes it surprises people when they hear about all the brands we have under the umbrella brand of LogMein. Three big challenges organizations have when helping people work in a hybrid world or working in a remote world, right, is connecting people. And a lot of people are familiar with GoToMeeting, they're familiar with GoToWebinar, they're familiar with GoToConnect, okay? They're familiar with the Connect side of our portfolio. What they might not realize is that when it comes to supporting end users, we own brands like Central, like Rescue, like GoToAssist, like GoToMyPC, all these tools to help people get access, to help people get support with troubleshooting, to help IT teams remotely log on and access end users' devices if they're in a difficult place. We know from our research it is more difficult to support employees when they're not in the office. You can't just pop up to IT anymore. I always use LogMein as an example here. We're 4,000 employees working in 4,000 different locations right now. And that's a bit of a headache for IT, but luckily enough, they're equipped with the right tools because we sell those. And then, of course, security. And Alexis touched on that earlier on. A 6 to 8 time increase in the attack surface that you guys need to manage for your end users. Again, tools like password management, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, 25 million users using LastPass with a LogMein's brand. Again, they all come through the LogMein house. They're all part of our umbrella brand. And what we've actually done with GoToConnect as well, we've created our GoToConnect Work From Anywhere bundles. If you jump to the next slide, Alexis, that starts bringing all those together in one SKU. So you can get the ability to connect and communicate your workforce from any location. You can access and support them from any location, and you can secure them from anywhere as well, whether GoToConnect From Anywhere bundles. And they all come in that wrap with Microsoft Teams integrations included to power that end user experience from a comms and collaboration standpoint through that Microsoft Teams interface. So that's it from Alexis and I today. We'll bring Erica back up and we might go through some many questions that we have from the audience. But while we're waiting for Erica, thank you very much to everybody for joining today. We really appreciate your time. We hope you found the information useful, and we really hope to hear from you again shortly.
Great, thanks, Joe and Alexis. A couple of questions came in, so before we wrap up, let's see. Keith had asked, how quickly can this be rolled out if you want to move away from your current provider?
Sure, I'll be happy to take that one. And great question. That is one of the major advantages of not only GoToConnect, but also GoToConnect Teams Connector. And perhaps one thing I maybe did not mention earlier is the ease of use of using the GoToConnect Admin Center, and also how our GoToConnect PBX technology is engineered in one particular facet, where any change that you make to an object inside of GoToConnect, for example, if you point a phone number to another user or another line, those changes are made instantly. And that goes along with the dial plan, just quickly showcasing the ease of use of using our GoToConnect system to administer your telephony solution. But that also goes into setting up the service. For example, the longest part of migrating maybe from your current solution to GoToConnect is really porting the phone numbers, because everything else can be set up instantaneously. Adding users takes a matter of seconds, as well as setting up lines or dial plans. And then for the GoToConnect Teams Connector part specifically, we have actually created a GoToConnect Teams Connector dashboard that uses a series of APIs and also connects to your O365 tenant via PowerShell scripts to completely automate the direct routing setup process from end to end. What this means for you as a UCC admin is that you do not need to hire or ramp up on knowledge concerning how to administer the Microsoft Teams administrative or cloud PBX system, or how to set up direct routing, because this can be quite a convoluted and technical process if we're not familiar with how to set up a direct route on the Microsoft Teams side. All of this is set up from end to end. We simply need to select which GoToConnect users we'd like to sync with Microsoft Teams users, essentially hit sync, and that can be done end to end in under 30 minutes.
Great, thanks, Alexis. And I'll also add in there too that you can see that you'll be supported by a team of experts like Alexis and our team of solutions consultants as well with that very technical answer. Awesome. And Keith, or actually Jim asked a little earlier, when you were doing the demo, Alexis, did you say that enabling calls within Teams is possible with any PBX?
What we were mentioning earlier is Microsoft Teams has a feature called direct routing. And what direct routing allows, and this is simply on the Microsoft Teams side, it allows you to directly route inbound and outbound calls through or to an SBC of your choice. And this is where we would maybe get a little bit more technical. What that really means is that you can use a phone system of your choice. And this was normally done for legacy reasons, maybe if you really needed to retain some kind of on-prem telephony infrastructure, maybe whether that be for legal or feature reasons. And we're simply leveraging that direct routing feature to connect your team's infrastructure to our GoToConnect solution. Bringing GoToConnect as the voice provider for your Microsoft Teams clients, or another way to think of it is providing the dial tone inside of Teams. This is how we empower your Teams users with our GoToConnect features and capabilities.
Thanks again, Alexis. And if you could flip to the next slide there, so that that may answer a couple of the questions that came in. If you do want to learn more, our team, Alexis and the solutions consultant team that we have, are happy to meet one-on-one with you. And we do have a survey popping up after the webinar that you can respond to for that. A couple other questions. Let's see. I think that how hard or easy is it to connect GoToConnect? You answered that with that first question. And I know you mentioned this when you presented, but there was a question about if Teams goes down, then what happens with GoToConnect?
Yeah, great question. And I also wanted to touch on the previous question as well, again, in terms of how difficult it is to set it up. That will be done right from your GoToConnect PBX admin panel, as well as if you were to choose to go with GoToConnect, your project manager and support will also be happy to assist this, to set this up for you as well. So very easy, and again, a no-lift integration. In terms of, and then forgive me, if we can repeat the second question for me one more time.
So the second question was around the reliability, and what if Microsoft goes down, what happens with the phone?
Perfect. What we normally suggest there is that if there ever is an O365 outage and we're not able to access the Teams clients, to have users log into the GoToConnect mobile app or the web client. That way, you as the IT admin don't necessarily need to install the GoToConnect desktop client on users' machines. They can simply sign into the web client or mobile app to continue making and receiving calls. And if we've deployed hard phones for those users, those will continue to work as normal. Those will be unaffected by Microsoft outages.
Thanks. And Joe or Alexis, could either of you speak to GoToConnect's reliability?
Perfect. Yeah, GoToConnect, we have currently increased our uptime from 99.994% last year to 99.997% this year, and that is also backed by paid SLA. So giving you multiple reassurances and making sure that wherever we are receiving or concentrating our inbound call volume, that is with the vendor that has the highest uptime and the most reassurances for what may happen if we were to miss that inbound call volume, making sure that your business is protected.
Right, and we are a little over time with Q&A, but that was great. Thank you. So I want to wrap up, and I'll ask you, Joe or Alexis, if you have any final thoughts. And just one quick note from me: we'll send the follow-up email with the recording and the slides and resources after the webinar. And if you have any questions, if you're watching the recording, just go to goto.com/integrations to learn more. And we've got all of our resources there as well.
Yeah, and just Erica, we're more than happy to talk to anybody who would like to learn more as well. If they want to, organize a demonstration for their own organization, if they want to ask more questions, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to do that. We'd love to hear from them.
All right, thank you again for all of you. We still got an audience here, so thanks for joining today, and you'll see the follow-up email likely a little later today. So from all of us here at GoTo, thanks for joining and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks very much,
Thanks,
everyone.
Alexis.
Bye-bye.
Bye.